I don't know if they're going public anytime soon, but it might be worth an investment because they might just be the next big thing in the world of B2B sales. If you are a sales leader, chances are you've heard of Apollo or Seamless, especially if you're looking to build outbound prospecting tools for your team. Both of these have been in the news. Both of them are fast growing disruptors, but is there one that makes more sense for most businesses? We are going to dive into a feature comparison of Apollo and Seamless, as well as pricing. And by the way, one of these has very elusive pricing that's hidden behind demos, so we will try to shed some light on that as well. Before we break down the features, it's always helpful to take a step back and look at the outbound prospecting process in general, just to know where these platforms fit in. So, starting off, we have identifying target accounts and then identifying target contacts. So, a lot of people like to put these together and say lead generation. But in reality, if you're being strategic about the way that you build your contact lists, you want to validate accounts before you find the contacts. So being able to split those up can play a big role in improving your outbound process. Now, both of these platforms are capable of lead generation in terms of identifying contacts and collecting the data for accounts and email addresses, phone numbers, etc. Once you have the contact information, that's when you want to start the prospecting. You do all of your outreach automations, and then managing your pipeline. That's sort of where the comparison starts to change because Apollo is really the only one out of these two that offers features across the entire sales and marketing process from top of funnel demand generation to closing. Now, granted, their pipeline features are relatively new in terms of being used as a CRM, but where they really shine is in their outreach and prospecting, especially with their outreach automations. So it's difficult to compare apples to apples with these two since Seamless is really just a data source for outbound prospecting, whereas Apollo provides the data, but then also gives you the tools needed to scale your outreach. Now let's take a look at some of those lead gen capacities. So starting off with search capabilities, this is the platform's ability to give you a certain level of granularity when you want to search for contacts and accounts. It seems as though Seamless is good enough as a high level tool for finding relevant companies or contacts, whereas Apollo really shines in having detailed search requirements and search filters that you can use to filter out companies that wouldn't be a good fit. A prime example of this is their keyword search feature. Apollo gives you the option to simply search for keywords, whereas Apollo gives you the option to search for keywords depending on whether or not the keyword is in the company's name, the company's SEO description, the company's LinkedIn description. So you can get a lot more specific. If I'm searching for payroll companies, for example, and I want to find a company that has payroll in the name of the company, I can do that with Apollo. I can't really do that with Seamless. Another example is if you want to search for companies based on their headcount growth or their headcount growth per department or the total number of headcount that they have in a given department, you can do that with Apollo. You can't really do that with Seamless. It's also important to differentiate. Apollo considers themselves a B2B contact database, whereas Seamless doesn't call themselves a database. They say that they're a real-time AI search engine, so they go and scour the web to find contact information for given contacts. There is probably some truth in that, although, I mean, it's a database for all intents and purposes, so they really do roughly the same thing. Now, most of these databases seem to get their contact information starting with LinkedIn. That's how they kind of structure it. The reason I believe that is because you won't find a record in these databases that does not have a LinkedIn URL for that contact associated with it. And so it seems as though the person has to exist on LinkedIn in order to be in these databases, which makes sense because that's where people tend to go to update their job status and their current role. One thing that's really important to people is data quality. Honestly, they're roughly the same. The challenge with Seamless, it seems, is that because they are an AI search engine, they collect multiple email addresses and multiple phone numbers for each contact and return that back to you. And they'll give you a percentage of how confident they are that the phone number or the email address is associated with that person. It's helpful to have that, but it can be a little bit overwhelming to have to then sort through all of these percentages and confidence levels and try to figure out which contact information you want to go after. Whereas Apollo just says, this is their email, this is their phone. Now, Apollo still has confidence levels, but they're not giving you multiple contact phone numbers, for example. They'll give you the HQ phone number, and then you can pay extra for the mobile credits. One thing that's really important in the outbound prospecting process, especially if you want to be diligent about your list building, your targeting, is list management. So we mentioned before that you want to build your account list and then you want to build your contact lists. And it's helpful once you have your account lists to be able to then search for contacts based on that list of accounts. So list management is very important if you want to have good data hygiene and a solid workflow. Apollo sort of wins in that category. They have really intuitive list management features, whereas Seamless, it kind of tends to be clunky. There's not that much confidence in their list building capabilities or their list management capabilities, at least. As far as data volume, this one's pretty objective. So Seamless, if you get their pro plan, they give you 1,000 searches a day. Now, it's important to clarify, it's not exports, because since they're a search engine, they charge you for each search for the contact. So they give you 1,000 a day. They do not roll over, so it's not 30,000 a month. It's just 1,000 a day. Use it or lose it. Apollo gives you 2,000 a month for their pro plan, and that includes exporting. So this is the one area I'll say Seamless seems to outshine Apollo in, is the volume of contact data that you can access. So if you really go all out, you can get the 30,000 a month, whereas Apollo, you'll have to pay extra to meet that level of volume. Now, for most sales teams, I think the 2,000 a month probably is enough. I can't imagine most, individuals, small sales teams, SaaS companies really needing that 30,000 a month. The one situation I would say where it makes sense to have that level of volume is if you want high volume cold calling, because Seamless will give you mobile numbers included within that 1,000 a month. Now, it seems that in the outbound prospecting space, one of the most difficult and expensive pieces of data to get is cell phone numbers. So you'll get up to 1,000 cell phone numbers a day with Seamless. Apollo, for their pro plan, gives you 100 a month, and then you can pay extra for that. It does come with account headquarter numbers, but only 100 a month for the mobile numbers. Now, as for the pricing, you're going to have a hard time finding pricing information on Seamless. I scoured G2, their website, and it was really all over the place. There's not a lot of transparency there. Starting my conversation with their sales rep, I was quoted at about $300 a month for my own seat as one user, and they do have annual contracts, and there's no way around that, according to their sales rep. I was able to work it down to $200 a month. The pricing is not easy to compare because of the data volume. If you want a lot of data, if you want a lot of mobile numbers, Seamless will be less expensive. If you can't anticipate yourself needing more than 100 mobile numbers a month, then Apollo by far is less expensive. Half the cost, and there's no annual contract. So I think for most sales teams, even if you do want to go above that 100 a month for the mobile number data, Apollo is probably enough. Now, as for other features, both of these platforms have AI-driven writing capabilities, intent data, and you can search for companies that are in the news for certain features. But this kind of takes us back to what we were discussing before with all of the capabilities of the platforms. Apollo really is a one-stop shop. Not only do they do everything, but they actually do it pretty well. So normally with these platforms, when you find an all-in-one platform, chances are you're sacrificing features. But with Apollo, I can confidently say that they seem to be one of the best B2B contact databases, especially when you consider their pricing. Apollo gives you really all the same data for a fraction of the cost, no annual contract, very robust search features, very solid list management, data hygiene. And then on the outbound prospecting side, the email automation, you can cold call, you can check your deliverability, you can have multiple mailboxes to rotate mailboxes if you want to do outbound email. And then their pipeline management, their CRM feature, again, it's new, it's probably in a beta form right now, but it's there, right? So you can have your entire sales process embedded within Apollo. So I don't know if they're going public anytime soon, but it might be worth an investment because they might just be the next big thing in the world of B2B sales. So, with that said, is there a clear winner? I think so. I think Apollo by far, in most use cases, is a way better decision than going with Seamless AI. No contract, less expensive, more features, better features, does more. The one caveat I would say where Seamless might make sense, and I wouldn't even say necessarily to replace Apollo, probably to augment Apollo, is if you want a lot of mobile numbers. That seems to be about it. Seamless is good with mobile numbers, and Apollo is good with everything else. If you are interested in implementing any one of these tools for your sales teams, you may want to consider how to integrate them with your other tools, such as your CRM or even your marketing or ad spend campaigns. It's always helpful to have a partner who understands these platforms and can help your team get up to speed to use them most effectively. So feel free to reach out. We're here to help out with anything related to revenue operations and to help your team scalably connect with more people and close more deals.